Hello everybody and welcome back to Donovan's Daily Dose. I'm your favorite APUS history teacher, Mr. Donovan, and today we're going to walk you through World War I. Now, for this video, we're not really going to focus on the European perspective and like the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand or any of the causes from the European perspective. What we're really going to focus on is how America initially responds to war in Europe and then the impact it has on America. So let's dive right in. So America initially remains neutral and isolated from World War I in Europe for multiple reasons. First, they want to continue trading with different European countries who are involved, and if they picked a side, this would really inhibit their ability to continue trading. Along with this, we're in the heart of the progressive era. Progressives at this time are still trying to tackle the issues of the Gilded Age, the low wages, the unfair working conditions, the fight for women's suffrage on a national scale. So progressives feel that getting involved in World War I would really inhibit their ability to make social, political, and economic changes. And then last but not least, America really has a long history of isolationism, going back to Washington's farewell address in which he warns us to avoid permanent foreign alliances, or even the Monroe Doctrine of 1823 that kind of establishes America as the protectorate of the Western Hemisphere and tries to limit European influence in the Western Hemisphere. America's really tried to stay out of political conflicts in Europe. Now, we know that America does eventually join World War I, and there's a couple different big reasons. First, we see the continued use of German unrestricted submarine warfare. This includes things like the Lusitania crisis or the Sussex. Both of these aren't necessarily American ships, but American passengers are killed at the hands of German unrestricted submarine warfare. But the big one that really drags America into this war is the Zimmermann Telegram. Now, this was supposed to be a secret alliance between Germany and Mexico. Germany reached out to Mexico in hopes of getting them to distract America from World War I. They promised that if Mexico invaded the United States, keeping them out of the European theater, that after the war was over, if Germany won, they would return some of the land that Mexico lost to the United States way back in the middle of the 1800s during the Mexican-American War. This would include modern-day states like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and a couple others. So even though this alliance is supposed to be secret, it is actually intercepted and decoded by the British. And the British send this intelligence to the United States, and after that is we're going to see the United States officially enter the war in 1917. Now, in America, we are going to start to see some changes in the domestic United States during the war. This will help to kickstart more of the Great Migration. This is the mass exodus of African Americans from the South to the North, Midwest, and West Coast. And during this time in the 1910s, we're going to see a lot of Black Americans move for job opportunities. We are going to see increased industrialization and focus on developing war materials. And thanks to the military draft of World War I, there's going to be more openings in these major industrialized cities. So that's going to be one factor that leads to the Great Migration, with the other one being escaping the Jim Crow laws of the South. Another big change we see in the domestic United States is we start to see increased participation of women in the industrial workforce, again, as a big result of the military draft. And last but not least, we start to see the rise, again, of nativist sentiment. So nativism is really this idea that's focused on anti-immigrant sentiment. So nativists feel that immigrants coming into the United States might change the political culture. They're scared they might bring communist ideas over from places like the Soviet Union that is starting to emerge during the Russian Revolution during the same time. So the fear of immigrants and their influence in American society in changing the politics or the cultural beliefs of American citizens is something that arises during this time, even more so than previous decades. And this is one of the biggest targets of this is really going to be German. So German immigrants are going to be targeted for a lot of nativist sentiment due to the Zimmermann Telegram and the unrestricted submarine warfare I already discussed. Now, in terms of the effects of World War I in America, one of the big roles that America plays is really the development of policy after the war is over. So Woodrow Wilson develops his 14 points. So in these 14 points, he works with social scientists, foreign ambassadors, and they take a look at maps and data and information to create a list of points that could help prevent another war of this magnitude. So the 14 points goes over the redrawing of political and geographic boundaries, It goes over the freedom of the seas and the navigation of trade on a global scale. And the most important point of this is his 14th point, which is the creation of a League of Nations. So the League of Nations ultimately was created to be this international peacekeeping organization, right? And sometimes historians point to the phrase that World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars. And Wilson took that very seriously. He believed that this League of Nations, with America's joining, would help to prevent future wars by solving problems diplomatically through negotiations and treaties rather than warfare. So this would result in what's called collective security. If we get all of the nations in the world to join this League of Nations, we will have collective peace in our time. So even though this is a Wilson idea, the United States actually does not join the League of Nations. It has to get approved by the United States Congress in order to happen, and Congress shoots it down. One of the big reasons why Congress does not approve of the League of Nations is the fact that it would reduce Congress's ability to declare war. So in our Constitution, Congress is the only branch of the federal government that can technically declare war. If the United States joined this League of Nations, they would be at the mercy of this organization in terms of when they could enter the wars. So in this case, Congress would no longer be the sole dictator of when we would go to war. If the League of Nations decided that a nation needed to have war declared on them, Congress's hands would be tied if the United States joined the League of Nations. So they don't end up doing it. And this League of Nations is going to be temporary, and even though it'll fail, it will set the scene for the United Nations, which will emerge after World War II, and again, try to solve some of the problems that led to this war. So that's it, folks. World War I from the American perspective. Have an awesome rest of your day.